Hey, rookies, and welcome back to the Rookie Farmer Podcast. This is your home for all of the dreamers, the schemers, and the hustlers here in the world of small scale agriculture. If you're new here, if this is your first episode, I'm your host. My name is Alec Smith. I'm also the grower, the farmer, HR, CEO of everything here at Crop Culture Farm in New Bern, Georgia. All right, folks, I feel like it's been a minute. It's been a little bit of time since we've done the last farm vlog. A lot of stuff has happened. There's a lot of updates, a lot of new things that have happened, and I'm really, really excited to dive into those things. But before we get any further, I just want to throw something up here at the beginning of the episode that normally we put at the back end, but I just want to add it up here and remind you guys that we believe in value for value. There's a million schemes out there. There's a million ways that people are asking for resources or trying to convince you to join whatever their program is. Some of them I'm a big believer in. Some of them I'm like, yeah, that's great. I'll definitely give you $10 a month. For instance, no-till growers. I send Jesse $10 every single month because I believe in what they're doing. Really passionate about no-till and all that sort of stuff. And because I believe in it, I put my money where my mouth is. And I've been sending them $10 a month for several years now. And at the end of all these episodes, I always ask for the value for value pitch. I always give that to you and just say, hey, if this is valuable to you, if this brings some sort of benefit to your farm career or to your farm or just to you personally, whether it's just a reprieve in the middle of the day to listen to somebody that you can commiserate with, or if you're really gaining knowledge and experience and understanding through the podcast, whatever it may be, if you find value in this, please consider kicking that value back our way in the form of a little tip, a little donation. You can go to Cash App, Venmo, PayPal. Look for at Crop Culture Farm, hashtag Crop Culture Farm. Just search Crop Culture Farm. You'll be able to find us there and you can shoot us some money. And big thanks to Shane. Shane, you know who you are, for donating. You did recently, and I really appreciate that. And every little bit counts. Every little bit helps. Because, this takes time. This is not something that I just have all of the time in the world to do for free and just have people throwing money at me left and right. Diego's been really grateful helping us out, getting this thing going. But the reality of it is if this is something that we want to be consistent and committed to, it's going to take some resources. So please consider helping us out. The number one reason why people don't give or reason why people don't help support companies or programs is because they were never asked to. So I never want to let that be the reason why you guys aren't able to partner with us and supporting what we're doing here at the Rookie Farmer Podcast. So this is my ask. And another thing that I want to start doing is if you have questions, shoot me $10 or $5 or $1, whatever, ask a question, and I would gladly love to answer it on the show. Now, let me be honest with you. Even if you don't give anything and you have questions, and if it's something that I feel like is really relevant for the show, I would love to answer it. We're always needing stuff to talk about. It might be a thing that I can ask an upcoming guest if I feel like it's relevant, or on these farm vlog episodes that you're listening to right now. We can answer that and we can hopefully work together and figure it out. I don't claim to be an expert. I'm 2 years into this whole thing, 5 years if you include my time at the other farm. And but we're just learning together, and I can give my input, I can give my perspective, or I can use it as an opportunity to do a little bit of digging, do a little research, and hopefully help you answer your question. But if you want to guarantee that your question will get answered on the show, send it with a little bit of that extra little gift to help out the show, and we will gladly love to shout you out and answer your question on the show. All right. And another thing is, you may have noticed over the last couple of weeks, the schedule has been a little bit off. Maybe you're not getting quite as many of the shows as you normally were before. And once again, on these farm vlog episodes, I love to sort of peel back the the curtain and show you behind the scenes of sort of the way that this all works. And one of those things is the reality is that summer and the first part of fall are extremely busy here on the farm. We are in full blown summer mode. I feel like I spend every day picking, whether it's figs or okra or green beans or tomatoes or peppers or whatever it may be. Something has to get picked, and it oftentimes ends up being that I'm spending a good chunk of most days picking something or planting something. And the reality of it is I just don't have a lot of extra time between that and summer events, things with family, so on and so forth. I'm feeling a little bit stretched thin with the podcast right now. And so what we decided to do is that we're going to extend sort of the space between episodes from now until the rest of the year. So instead of getting 3 episodes, one every week, and then taking a week off and then doing that sort of 3 on, 1 off, we're going to this every other week schedule for now until probably November, December. And that'll give me a little bit of time to breathe. But most importantly, what it'll do is it'll give me time to reset, refocus, and begin to plan and prep for the 2026 podcast season, not just the farming season. I have several amazing prospective guests that I've been emailing with, DMing with, some people that may be the biggest guests we've had yet. And we'll see. I don't want to name any names. But there's also people that have continued to reach out to me, rookie farmers, people that have been doing it a few years. We already have some amazing people lined up to talk to. And I want to be able to spend this fall while we're releasing the rest of these episodes that we'll do for the year, also really being able to hone things in and tighten things up so that we can give you guys the best Rookie Farmer podcast that is possible for season 2. And so with that in mind, I need to give myself a little bit of time to peel back and to and reconfigure all of this sort of stuff. So please bear with us. Sorry you're not getting all those episodes, but I can guarantee you that this will lead to a much better podcast in the future. And with that, as we're planning already for the 2026 season and we're getting our head on straight with that, if there's people that you want me to talk to, you can throw someone in the comment, throw out you should interview Will Harris. Well, I mean, the reality of it is, Will Harris has been on a lot of different podcasts. He is out there. His voice is being heard. He has plenty of exposure. And frankly, a person like that, I'm not so sure how much that they would be able to contribute to our podcast. I could sit and talk to him all day long, and that would be really fantastic. But the reality of it is I want to be the place that we are talking to the unsung heroes. We're talking to the rookies. We're talking to the people that are really doing leaps and bounds, but maybe don't have a huge voice. Maybe they don't have a massive platform that they're already, yelling from the rooftops, the amazing missions that they're doing. And, if Will wanted to come on the show, then I would be more than obliged. And I would love to have that conversation and talk about regenerative. But the truth of the matter is this is a show for those of us that are in the trenches, not just the people that are in the industry or people that are maybe have never even heard of regenerative agriculture for the first time. And I feel like a person like that has a wonderful mouthpiece to be able to bring those people in to our world. But for those of us that are already in our world, I really want to engage with the people that are getting their hands dirty every single day in the trenches, the industry professionals, talk to the seed growers, talk to the people that are processing and selling fertilizer, talk to the people that are in the process of, trying to do their equip grant through the NRCS so they can get a high tunnel, and talk about the nitty gritty details that go through that and how is it going, and do they feel like they're succeeding? What are the points of failure through those processes? And those are the conversations that I really want to have. If you want to have a big, broad, sweeping conversation about agriculture or regenerative ag or how we can save the planet, I think those are wonderful conversations. But the truth of the matter is those are already out there. All of that stuff is already out there, and we don't want to reinvent the wheel, but we also don't want to just continue to rehash the same thing over and over again. I think we've carved out a nice little niche here in the small scale ag world. And I think realism, being authentic and being vulnerable with the struggles and the processes that we're in, that's really where we shine. And so I want to find more people like that. So if you know a grower, or if you are a grower and you feel like you have something to contribute to that conversation, or if you know of a seed grower or a seed rep or whoever that you think would have insight, whether they could be a soil scientist or someone who works for an ag department at a university or someone who's connected with the USDA, whatever it may be, if their industry touches the world of small scale ag, both in livestock production, maybe it's dairy, maybe it's continuing to go down this path of mixed vegetable production like we're doing now. Maybe it's a person who has an orchard, or maybe it's someone who's doing flowers, whatever it may be. If it fits into the world of small scale agriculture or it touches it, we would love to talk with you. So if that is you, please shoot me an email at cropculturefarm@gmail.com. And if you know of someone who you feel like would fit the bill to be on the show, please consider, CCing me in an email, connect us so that I don't have to do the awkward work of hunting people down and doing that. Email them and say, hey, you should reach out to this guy, or just say, hey, Alec, I've been talking to such and such. Here you go. I made the connection for you. That would make my life so much easier. And it would mean that we can get super amazing guests, the people that you want to hear from, because you're the one that's finding them and you're the one that's connecting us. So thank you so much in advance for that. And just remember, shoot me an email at cropculturefarm@gmail.com. And we would love to be in touch. We'd love to get you on the show. And let's make this rest of the season and the 2026 season of the Rookie Farmer Podcast the best one yet. And that being said, one of the downsides of doing this show is that I oftentimes am asking questions and I'm not really getting to express myself or engage with other people from the other side of the microphone, like I did last year on Farm Startup. And frankly, it's something that I kind of miss. As much as I love hosting a podcast, as much as I love asking those questions and sort of the art of conversation, I really miss people asking me questions and being able to share my heart about what we're doing here at the podcast, but also at my farm and in the world of ag. And so if you have a podcast, or there's a podcast that you listen to that you would love to hear me on, or you would love for me to have a conversation with another grower on their show, or maybe it's not another farmer, maybe it's a culinary thing and they want to get a perspective of a small scale grower that sells to restaurants and whatever it may be. If there's a show that you think that we would be a good fit for, that I would be a good fit for, please consider doing the same thing and trying to make that connect. Let your podcasters know that they should interview me and that they should reach out to me, because the truth of the matter is we could use all the exposure that we can get to make the show bigger and better. But also, I just love having conversations. I love podcasts. I love listening to them. I love making them. I love recording them. I love being a part of them. And so, reach out to other podcasters. Let them know that they should have us on. And if you are one of those podcasters, we would love to sit down for a conversation. So once again, shoot me an email, cropculturefarm@gmail.com. Last but not least, and then we'll get into the actual farm content of the Rookie Farmer Podcast. But I would love your feedback. Shoot me an email, shoot me a DM on Instagram, and just let us know what you think about the show. If you want more of these farm vlog episodes, if you think that, we should do one of these every other week, and do less of the interview shows, because you just want to hear the real reality of what it's like as me as a farmer going through the day to day, let me know. We'd love to do that. If you think that we should do some more Q&A type content where we're just rattling through a bunch of questions, or maybe if you guys are really wanting live stream content, whatever it may be, there's 1,000 different things that we could do. And I know there's things that I want to do and that I feel like we should be doing, but this is a collaborative effort. This isn't just the Alec Show. That's why it's not called the Alec Show, because I want to do this collaboratively with you. I want to build this industry as a whole, and I need your help. So please consider shooting us an email, sending me a DM, commenting on the YouTube videos, whatever it may be. Give us your feedback. Tell us what you think of the show. If you like it, if you don't like it, what we could do to make it better. Would greatly appreciate it. Thank you. All right. Now on to some farm updates. So last time when we talked, we were into summer. things are jamming, things are growing. We've got the new greenhouse full. And frankly, I was really feeling the squeeze of time. There's just only so many hours in the day, and you can only work so much. And I'm doing an hour, 2 hours in the morning before I would drive to the other farm job, work that, and then come home and work till dark. And it was just absolutely exhausting. It was just so much work. And the reality of it is, as sales started picking up at the farmers market, we were making a little bit more money. So what that means is that since last time we talked, about 3 weeks ago, I made the jump and I am now farming full time at Crop Culture Farm. It's a huge, huge leap of faith. Thankfully, sales are up, sales are doing really good. But it's still, it's very sobering to realize that it's like my family's income, my family's well being is now solely on my shoulders and on the shoulders of this business. This farm is not a hobby anymore. It hasn't really been a hobby for a long time, but it's not just a hobby. It's not just a side hustle. This is the main thing. And this is the only thing at this point. Basically, farming and podcasting are really the only two things that I do anymore. And that's been a real big adjustment. One, in time management, being here every single day, thinking about our finances, thinking about the way that I structure the business and thinking about cash flow and all those various things. A lot of that has shifted over the last few weeks, where I always knew I had that safety net. I knew I could have, $1,000 coming in or this many hundreds of dollars coming in every single month from the other job. And it's like, if the farm ebbs and flows or whatever, it doesn't really matter because we have this and we'll be good. But the reality of it is now it is make or break. It's either sink or swim, and that's put a lot of things in perspective. Like for instance, we have to be far more decisive about where we invest the capital that we have. We can't just throw money at projects. We can't throw money at infrastructure like I would love to, just simply because we need to make sure that I have a bit of a bank, of a reserve that we can operate off of for the remainder of the year and into next year. We're setting money aside for operations for next year already, because there is no winter farm job. Sales are going to take dips in the wintertime, and rent's not going to dip down. Nothing else is going to change on the finances going out, which means that we need to reevaluate and we need to sort of reorient the finances that are coming in. So obviously we don't fully have a great handle on exactly what all that's going to look like. We're kind of coming into our second fall. We're in our second summer right now, but we're a brand new market on a totally different scale, doing it full time. And so in a lot of ways, this is completely brand new. It's totally new territory. We didn't sell all the way through the winter. We sort of took some time off and scaled back a little bit. But this year, we'll be selling every Saturday all the way through December. We'll take 2 Saturdays off, and then boom, we're right back at the beginning of January with the winter market. And so, there'll be some more cash flow with that. But the reality of it is there's going to be different expenses. There's going to be different time constraints. I don't really know what the sales will look like in December. And so because of that, that means that we have to really, really buckle down to ensure that if we have a slow month, that the financiers are there to float the business through a slow month so that we can continue to operate and we're not strapped for cash. But I think the biggest area outside of finances is just time management. I am now on the farm 7 days a week. I'm here every single day. I'm not commuting to another job. I don't have days where I work all day long at work and then I can just come home and kick my feet up. I wake up every morning and go to the farm and I work. And in some ways it's been nice because it's given me a bit of a breather. I don't feel the stress of having to work. Every little bit of time has to count because I'm on a limited schedule because these other days I have to go do this. I have a little bit more time. I can breathe. I can choose to say like, you know what, we're going to sleep in an extra 30 minutes this morning because we really kicked butt yesterday. And I'm going to wake up and make breakfast and eat breakfast with my kids before I go out to the farm because that's equally as important. And so it's allowed for some flexibility. It's allowed for some breathing room. The temptation can always be that, like, oh, I work for myself. I'm gonna get out to the farm at like 9:30. Like, it'll be fine. I'll just get out there and I'll work for an hour or two, and then maybe I'll run to the store or come inside and take a nap, whatever it may be. And there's no one over your shoulder saying, "Work harder, keep going, don't stop." It's just me. And so simultaneously, I'm allowing myself to breathe a little bit more instead of killing myself like I had been, but also having to find a new motivation within myself to keep going on the days that you don't want to. Because it's really easy when it's super hot and you're really exhausted to keep going because you're in another person's business and you have the motivation of like, I'm here, I'm on their time, I'm on their dollar, and you just kind of keep going. But when it's just you, and you're not necessarily paying yourself per hour per se, and it's super hot and you're tired and you're in that tunnel, hunting for eggplant within the big plants. It can be really easy to just say like, nah, I think I'm done this week, or I think I'm done today, and I'm just going to go inside and just relax. And sometimes maybe I need to, and maybe that'll be a good thing for the longevity of my body and of the business. But also, you have to dig really deep and say, no, you have to keep going. You have to work. We've got to get this done, because if you don't do this today, then it's going to put you back tomorrow, and it's going to put you back whatever. And then next thing you know, things start piling up and sales start slumping, and then you're strapped for cash. And so it's been a bit of an adjustment, to say the least. And then you just have sort of the weight of it all, just wondering, is it going to continue to be successful? Is something crazy going to happen and I have nothing to fall back on? And so, there's always sort of that thought in the back of my mind. And maybe after a few seasons of doing this full time and seeing the ebbs and the flows and knowing how the finances are going to kind of handle themselves, maybe I'll be able to not have to stress about it as much. But for right now, it's also new. It's also scary. And so I imagine for the rest of this year, we'll probably be talking about a lot of the adjustments, a lot of the changes of going full time, not only just running my own business, but that business also being a farm. So stay tuned for more on the journey to full time farming. But some other things that have been really interesting has been trying to do summer greens. This time last year, because we weren't so dependent on the farm, because the, sales from the farm was not the biggest portion of our income. I was still working another job. Scaling back in the summertime, having slump sales was not that big of a deal. It's fine. We'll survive. We'll make it through. Tomatoes, eggplants, peppers, those sort of things, like that'll carry us through. But now it's like we've got to try and grow and sell as much as we can. And so I've been trying to expand and do more with our summer greens, whether it's lettuces, arugula, baby kale, mustards, whatever it may be. And man, it has been a challenge. We went from having one of the wettest springs that we've had in a decade or two to, the faucet got turned off and the heat got turned on. We're in the low to mid 80s and it's raining every single day for a week straight. And you're like, oh my gosh, when is this going to stop? And then it stopped, and you get rain once a week and it's for 5 minutes and it's 96 degrees every single day. And stuff is just so dry, and the germination rates are just abysmal. We're using the germination netting from Modern Grower, which has been a lifesaver. We're using the Sumi soaker. We're doing all of the necessary things that we can do. We're trying to sow in the evening time so that seed can sort of sit in slightly cooler soil overnight, to help it acclimate instead of just trying to plant it right in the middle of the scorching day. We're trying to time it with when it does rain or when we have a bit of a cooler spell. But the reality of it is like these greens are really not intended to be grown in the super humid, hot days of the South. But it's a really good selling crop. I could basically charge whatever I wanted to and take as much as I wanted to the market of those greens and sell them, but we're struggling to just get the bare minimum that we can. If we can get 10 bags of arugula and if we can get, 20 bags of lettuce mix, then we're killing it this week. And like, boom, we just keep going and we sell it and we move on. So if you have any sort of recommendations or advice on, summer baby greens, direct seeded things and lettuces down here in the South, other than shade cloth and, tarps and overhead watering and all of the things that I know to do. We're using the heat tolerant varieties. If there's anything that I'm missing or that you think that you've got a trick that would help me out, I would love to hear it. Please let me know. We can collaborate together so that we can be the best summer greens growing farm that we can be. And man, we've been battling some weeds. The silage tarps have been my absolute best friend. Been so grateful. We've moved to sort of a block system that we'll probably continue with moving forward instead of just sort of filling beds as they become available, which I know is not a very good system, but it's just sort of what we've been rolling with. We're starting to take beds out of production for extended amounts of time instead of trying to just quickly get a bed flipped over and get something in there and it's subpar and it gets full of weeds and it doesn't work very well. We've opted to move towards sort of 3 and 5 block sections so that we can tarp it for a month, we can tarp it for 2 months, kill all of the weeds. Unfortunately, we're also killing the grass in the pathways. I really love my living pathways, but we're allowing ourselves to sort of kill whatever grass is there, hopefully germinate and kill the weeds in the top layer of the soil, so that we can get, especially our direct seeded baby greens that I've just been talking about, that we can get all of that stuff in the ground and not have to deal with the weed pressure and the grass pressure as much as we have been. And it's been successful. The last 3 or 4 directly seeded beds and transplanted beds that were under the tarp for a month and a half are really wonderful. And obviously, there is still some grass. There's still some weed seed that's going to germinate, but it's significantly less. And usually because it's so damp, as soon as you pull the tarp back, you give it a day or two, a lot of those weeds will instantly germinate. And then you can hoe them when you're doing your bed prep right before you seed or transplant, and you can deal with that. And so that's been a great success because weeds have been the absolute bane of my existence. We have a massive weed seed bank. We have so much grass seed in the soil, and it's really hard to outcompete it with our cash crops. And so the tarps have been wonderful. So we'll probably be investing in more silage tarps over the winter, so that we'll be good to go for those next year. All right. Now on to some farmers market updates. Things have been just popping off. So for some context, this time last year at our farmers market, we were really in a bit of a slump. We had a really successful spring. It was really busy. We were selling a lot of stuff. And a lot of weeks we were selling out. And then about beginning of July, mid of July, things just stalled out. It's so hot. The market's outside. People just stopped coming, and our sales got cut in half. And it was really discouraging because I thought for sure, like, we've got tomatoes, we've got all this sort of stuff. And it's just like, this is the busiest time of the year, and realized that it wasn't. And thankfully, it has been a completely different story this year. This market is just now really ramping up. The winter was really busy. The early spring started off slow, and there's been a steady curve upward since probably the last week of April. Where we're hitting numbers. We were hitting numbers like 600, 700, 800. In March and beginning of April, and then we're hitting 900, and then we're hitting 1,000. Now we're consistently sort of in the $1,300 to $1,500 range every single Saturday, which for us is a huge deal. That's probably the smallest amount of sales of all the other bigger farms there, but they're bigger farms, and it's just me. And so for me, that's a huge success in year 2 that we're consistently doing 13, 14, and almost $1,500 every Saturday at the market. And it's because we're hitting those numbers and seeing that it's possible and seeing that I can grow enough to continuously do that every week, and was a lot of the motivation for me to go full time, because I realized, like, all right, the market demand is here. I can sell stuff. We can keep this ball rolling. We'll see what fall and winter hold. I know what the actual winter market in like January, February will be, but we'll see what November and December look like. But it's been really wonderful to see to see the sales just continue to surge and actually get better. Almost like every week is slightly better. Now we're sort of like teetering back and forth, and kind of like this like $100 to $200 range. And it's good to have some consistency and some good cash flow, which is really nice. And just continuing to get to know customers, beginning to meet their families. They're bringing their moms, and we talk to them, and people are saying like, "Oh, I told my friend, and now my friend's coming," and now we're getting to know friends and people that weren't here at the beginning of the year now here, and they're becoming loyal customers every single week. It's been really wonderful. And the people at Monroe, the guys like Brian, who you'll hear from later on in the season, the market director, but everyone at the Athens market and everyone in the city of Athens has been really wonderful. I didn't know how great the market could be. And every week it just continues to blow my mind, more and more little bits and pieces of how wonderful it is. So I'm really happy I made the switch, really happy I made the leap to the big leagues. And I think we're a better farm for it. And obviously now I get to live my dream and farm full time, and it wouldn't be possible without it. So if anybody from the market, if you're a customer or a fellow farmer, whatever, thank you so much for all that you've done to help us out with our farmers market adventure in Athens. Thank you. But one of the things that I've had to retool and take copious amounts of mental and physical notes on is trying to find the niches that we fit in. I don't know what everyone's bringing to market. I don't know what the pepper selections are going to look like. You can talk to people ahead of time, but you don't really have a ton of time, because you're slinging veggies and then you're trying to set up and you're trying to go home and so on and so forth. And I'm realizing that I'm sort of going into every week or every time a new crop comes online, I'm going into it blind. I don't know if this is what people want. I have an idea what I think people want, but I don't realize maybe everyone has bell pepper and it's going to be really hard to sell it, which is a bit of the truth because most everybody has bell pepper. A lot of people have eggplant, but nobody has the eggplant like we have, and people really love ours. And so that's been a really nice niche that we found. Obviously, it's tomato season down here in Georgia. We could basically sell every pint of cherry tomato and every slicing tomato that we can grow. But I can find where some of the more the heirlooms, the Cherokee purples, the larger, really pretty heirloom tomatoes is an area that I feel like we can sort of find our niche. But there's all these different little niches throughout the market throughout the year. Summer lettuce is one of those things that nobody else has right now. So it's an area that we can refine and that we can step into. So one, that we are not having to compete with other people, that they can continue to sell as much as they want to and earn an amazing income. And then we can also do the same. And I can just try and grow as much summer lettuce as possible and sling it out the door and have a really good time doing it. So we will be continuing to find those little niches, making those notes, changing and refining our crop plan for the next few seasons as we sort of find where we fit in with everything. With maybe I'm really good at growing this, maybe I'm not good at growing that, so I'm not even going to worry about that. I'm going to let the guy 2 spaces down handle that. But whatever it may be, I think that's a really important thing with finding success at a farmer's market is not just growing what people want, but growing the things that people want that nobody else is offering. Obviously within reason, things like tomatoes, things like cucumbers, things like carrots, there's always going to be a huge demand for those. You're pretty much are guaranteed to be able to make money at that. Lettuce is another one. But when it comes down to varieties and how you package it and what size do you sell it at and so on and so forth, those are the things that you can really begin to niche down and sort of carve out your own space at the market and find a lot of success with your customers. And with that success, that's sort of where I want to end things on this episode is how do we define success? Just in life in general, is it 3 squares and a roof over your head? Is it being able to just, earn a modest income and not have to stress about where your next meal is going to come from? For some people in some parts of the world, like just to be able to feed yourself and to feed your family is a huge success, to be self-sustainable. But unfortunately in our modern consumerist world in the West, there's car payments and there's insurance bills and there's family vacations and there's all these things that we want to do and there's places that we want to go and there's sales goals that we want to hit. And oftentimes there's no true metric for what does it mean to be successful. I think that's one of those things that I see, in the context of this farmers market. You've got several farms that are really big. They've got crews. They're doing multiple farmers markets on a Saturday. I think one of them is doing 5 farmers markets a week. They have a crew of 20 people that are, some are full time, some are part time, and they're killing it and they're doing awesome, and they look very successful. And then there's another farm, it's him and a couple other people, and they're bigger than I am, and they are equally as killing it. Obviously they don't have to sell as much because there's less people involved, and I think probably some less acreage, whatever. And then there's me, who is super small. I'm on 1 acre, and I'm bootstrapping the operation and don't really have a mortgage and all of these sort of things. And so, and for me, it feels like that I'm killing it. And so, would you say that I'm less successful than the farm that's selling thousands of dollars every week and they're due, 5 farmers markets a week, or are they not succeeding because they have to hire all these people and they have to sell all that just to be able to, make payroll? There's so much perspective and there's so many different things. And so I have sort of 3 ideas of the way, or 3 sort of pillars that we can evaluate in the way that we value our success as farmers, and just as human beings. But I think in our context, specifically as farmers. And the first one is, can you pay your bills? The reality of it is the stress of money and the decisions that get made out of a stress about money are really detrimental to our mental health. They can be really detrimental to the relationships around us. If I'm super stressed out about money, I'm more apt to bite my wife's head off when she says something to me, and I just lash out because I'm upset with her, but because I'm just stressed. Whatever it may be. You miss out on opportunities to give your kids the education that they deserve, or the sporting opportunities that they have, so on and so forth. And so I would define success as like being able to cover your cost of living, be able to cover your lifestyle. I think most of us who are in this world are, we're not in it for the money. We're not living some lavish lifestyle. We're not taking European vacations. We've pared our lives down to be able to live within our means doing this. And frankly, if we're doing small scale, organic, no-till, regenerative things, I think we probably would rather live with less anyways. We don't tend to be as consumerist. We don't tend to be as excessive. We want to take care of the soil, and we want to take care of our bodies in the same way that we take care of the earth. And, but I think, to be able to say that like we're financially stable, financially successful, we can pay our bills, I can do this full time. I think that is a huge pillar of success. And it's not something to be ashamed of, that, you're just barely paying your bills and maybe you're paycheck to paycheck, but you're doing it. You're making it happen. You're bringing enough income off of your farm to, to support your lifestyle, or maybe between your farm and this, or, you've gotten a really good line of credit and you can sort of leverage debt in such a way, whatever that looks like. If you're able to support yourself in some form or fashion while doing this, then I think that is a huge point of success. So pillar number 1, be able to pay your bills. Pillar number 2, and I think this is the one that doesn't get talked about as much, and I think it's a little bit more evident than the third one will be, but this one is social capital. How has your business and how has your life impacted the people around you? And how can you see that as an element of success? We give our neighbors veggies, we give friends veggies. I'll give you an example. Soil Cubed, the company that we buy our potting mix through for seed starting, they bring the big sling bags of stuff and they drop it off, and I just ask the guy to set it over there by the seed house. He does it. It's his job. whatever, whatever. And then I go and I grab some okra and some tomatoes and peppers out of the cooler that had just been harvested that day and put them in a bag and I hand it to him. And his whole demeanor changes. He lights up. He's happy. He's so grateful. And those are little bits of social capital. Now, I may never see that man ever again, but it's just an example of the way something like helping a neighbor out, helping a fellow farmer out, giving your neighbors some veggies, being generous and being grateful for what people do for you and reciprocating that. I think that goes a long way. People will really help you out. Our neighbors have really helped us out because we've helped them out. We let their dog out during the day while they're at work because we're at home, because we're farmers. And he's like, I just got back from Alabama. I got 10 pounds of crawfish I'm boiling right now. Come over and have dinner with me. And so those are elements of success that can't necessarily be quantified because you can't put a dollar amount on it of like, oh, well, my neighbors have saved me this much this month because of, the social capital that I've exchanged it for, so on and so forth. But I think that's an element of just living in society, living in a community of people that you can't quantify the cost or the gain. But those are the people that when the rubber really meets the road, if you have an emergency, if there's a disaster, or even if there's just a minor inconvenience and you need to call on someone, being able to have that social capital is wildly important. One, it's because it makes you a more valuable, kind person that people want to be around, and people like people that have a lot of social capital. I think because they've earned it, and it's just a pleasant type person to be around. But also, that you can call on people when you're in a pinch, and they will definitely be there to help because you've probably helped them when they were in a pinch. And then, thirdly, inspiring others is a way that I am trying to remind myself is equally a part of my success. When the bank account is looking a little slim and maybe the offering that we have at the farmer's market isn't quite as good as it could be, I have to remind myself that like there's young college students that are coming to the market. There's people that are seeing my stuff on Instagram. There's friends who are just sort of observing from a distance. There's you that are listening to me talk about all of this sort of stuff, and by me sticking my neck out there and putting all this work in and doing all of this, people are being inspired. People are being inspired to eat healthier. We have friends that tell us all the time, like, oh, it's because of what you do that we've realized the importance of eating good, clean, healthy food and taking care of our bodies, and is them being healthy going to necessarily affect my life? Maybe, maybe not. Kind of goes back to that social capital thing, but if I'm transforming people's lives, if I can indirectly ensure that a kid is going to have their dad around healthy and active for years to come because I was able to inspire him to eat healthier because of us growing really nutrient dense organic produce, then it's like that is a huge level of success. That is a huge thing to be proud of. Or if I can encourage one of you guys to quit your job and start farming full time, or even just build a garden in your backyard that will eventually expand into that, that is a level of success. Does it change the number in the bank account? Does it change the, size of the truck that I drive? No, not at all. But it's one of those more metaphysical, ethereal elements of success that frankly you can't quantify because you shouldn't, because it's more about changing the world, and it's the success about us changing society and building each other up, and helping each other out. Like we need our finances and we need to be able to build social capital, and we should be inspiring other people because other people have inspired us, and everything is just sort of intermingled with each other. And there's not these sort of nice, neat, defined boxes, but think about that. Think about these three things. Think about your farm. Think about your business. Think about your life. Are you successful? And if you can't answer that, go through these lists. Think about your financial stability, the social capital that you're building. Are you inspiring others through the work that you're doing? And if the answer is no to any or all of those, think about ways that you can increase that, whether it's budgeting better, so that you can live on less and you can be a little bit more sustainable with your finances so that you can afford to be able to live the lifestyle that you want to live in the future. Or think about maybe helping that neighbor out, the guy 2 doors down that you don't really like, and but his grass is really high and it's only going to take you 30 extra minutes if you just drive over there with a lawnmower and do it for him real quick. Or think about the person that you see at the farmer's market, who wants to talk your head off and ask you all these dumb questions. And you're like, dude, you're holding up the line. But realizing that you might be giving him the wisdom and the knowledge for him to go and to build his own business and to go feed even more people. There's so many things that we can do to become successful. And I think part of it is also redefining what success is. It's not just more dollar signs, the better. It's not just more land, the better. It's not just book deals and Instagram followers and nicer cars. There are so many other areas of success that we should be looking at to define, are we successful as a person? And I think most importantly of all of those things is like, do you feel happy? Do you feel fulfilled? Do you feel like what you do matters? And so maybe that's a fourth pillar. That's a fourth leg of this table. It's like, do you feel satisfied? Do you feel fulfilled? Or do you feel empty inside? And there are people that you can talk to that. There's places you can go outside of farms. You can find faith in Christ like I have, or you can find a community of people who will help you feel satisfied, who will help you feel fulfilled. And I think if you can find all four of those things working harmoniously together, no matter how big or how small your business or your life is, that if all four of those things are living in harmony together, then you truly have found success. So if you can say that you have all those things, then good on you. And I'm proud of you and your success. And if you have some work to do, join the club, brother, sister. We'll just keep working. We'll keep refining this process, with all the days that we have left to do it. All right. Thank you guys so much for sitting down and hearing me rant for another farm vlog episode. I can't believe this is the 7th one. I really enjoy doing these and I look forward to doing more of them. But as always, a huge thanks to Diego and the whole team over at Modern Grower for making this show possible. Wouldn't be able to do it without you. And I'm really grateful for all the support that you guys have given me over these last few months of starting the show. And I look forward to even more of it in the future. And if you need the kit that we've talked about and you need ways to be able to refine your processes and become better growers, consider going over to Modern Grower and picking up the amazing gear, the amazing tools that they offer over there to become a more successful farmer. You can go to shop.moderngrower.co. Apparently, in some of these last episodes, I've been saying shop.moderngrower.com. It's force of habit, but it is shop.moderngrower.co, Modern Grower Co. But go over there, check it out. It's a really wonderfully curated list. There's not going to be 12,000 options. It's going to be exactly what you need to become a better modern grower. So go over there, check out the store. And by you doing that, you're indirectly supporting the show. So thank you in advance. And like I started out with the top of the show, we are value for value. So please consider kicking back a buck our way if this show finds value to you. If it's $1, $5, $10, whatever it is, every little bit helps. All right. You've been listening to another episode of the Rookie Farmer Podcast. I'm your host, Alec. And until next time, blessings and peace.